I'm back in the garage. Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 29 in the 68 Mustang fastback build known as Fangled. Now you know I've been off for a little while. I had some stuff I had to do, family stuff, and I took a vacation, but I am happy to be back in the garage. So in this video, I want to work on the shifter. In the previous video, I worked on the gas pedal, built a custom bracket for that, and mounted the gas pedal to the dash, or to the firewall, I should say. And part of that sequence was looking at the shifter that I had, the Lokar shifter, and I want to make a mount for that on top of the transmission tunnel. Now, I've been away from this car for about 3 weeks, so I have to refresh my own mind and my own memory of what I was doing. But I'm going to show you that shifter and hopefully show you where it's going to go and see if I can't come up with a bracket. Now, the idea is that I put this shifter in a location that is comfortable for me because I'm about the same height as the owner of the car. And so with that in mind, I want to be able to have that shifter mounted, and if I'm okay with it, he should be okay with it as well. This is an electronic shifter with a cable operation, so you can move it and shift the gears, but it also has a electronic function where you can slap the shifter basically to make it shift automatically. So let's take a look at the shifter and what I may end up doing to make it fit in the car. So I know I've shown this before, but I'm going to show you what's in the box once again. And everything is kind of just pulled out of place at the moment. There's nothing in the shifter sat in this box over here. This is the linkage arm that connects to the transmission so that the cable will go through here and operate the lever on the transmission. So I've just set these pieces in here for the moment, but this is the shifter. And as I said, this has a cable operation, so when you rotate the shifter, it moves the arm, which moves the cable, which shifts the transmission. This also has this function here, so you can move it side to side, and then I think you can tap it like this, and that'll allow you to shift the gears quicker. Instead of trying to make things move one click at a time, you can just bump it. So I need to get this mounted. If you'll notice, it has these brackets here. It looks like you can take these bolts loose and pivot this bracket slightly on this little pin. Same thing on this side. Take this loose here and it allows this bracket to move. I'm not too worried about that so much as getting it in the right spot in the car, fore and aft and side to side. You want it to sit nice and level. So I'm going to look at these brackets a little and see if I can't fine tune with these, but more than likely I'm going to build a perch that this will sit on and get bolted to, and that'll be attached to the top of the transmission tunnel. I also like to think in a way that when I take stuff apart or put it together, let's say, and then take it apart, I want to be able to remove this later. So I never want to put something in a position where it's considered permanent. I want to be able to move things around. You can also see this is slotted right here on all four of these. That'll allow for some movement as well, fore and aft. So I may end up putting in some nutserts into the bracket that I build to allow this to move a little bit. So let me show you where this needs to go in the car. The other thing I have to do is get this cable to flow from the shifter, this long cable, to flow from the shifter through the floor pan and to the transmission mount, the shifter arm. So I need to find a good spot for this to go through without it causing too much of a problem. And then there are some other pieces and parts in here. There's this bracket kit, there's all kinds of little hardware and stuff. And it does come with, although it's probably not going to get used, this boot ring floor mount. So this has this nice collar, but there's really nothing to mount this to. Unless you were going to put this down inside of a console and then have it sitting, this on top of the console. I don't know that we're going to have a console. I'm not sure what the status is going to be, but we'll see what I can come up with to get this mounted. So currently, this is just the stock seat for the 68, and we're probably not using these. We're probably going to use some sort of a bolstered seat, like a high back that would use for racing, and it'll be supported with a roll bar to keep it, you know, rigid, so you don't want to have it collapse on you. So the shifter, if you look at that, and you can see I've got the gas pedal. I talked about that. I have the gas pedal in place, so that's all done. But the shifter needs to be in a position to where it's right here by your side, because you can't reach forward if you have seat belts on. You want to make sure your seat belts are tight when you're doing this, and your shifter probably needs to be back this far. So it may end up that I use this panel right here. This is actually pretty close to the right height and feels pretty good. I may need to just come up with something simple underneath. And like I said, I think I can experiment with these little brackets here and take things loose, but right now, in my mind, this feels pretty close to the right spot. And that would be great, because I can definitely take advantage of this heavy inner structure that is the convertible pan. Now, the other thing I have to look at is how this cable comes out, and it'll have to go back underneath like the seat and go forward and come up beside the transmission on the driver's side. So right now, I kind of like that. That may not take much at all to make something. I know this is too thick. I'm just saying, if I took even something like a piece of 1-inch square tubing and mounted it there, that almost rectifies the whole thing without much effort. I'm going to come up with something. I want it to look clean, and just take advantage of being able to make it move. I may even move it back a little. I'll have to, again, I need to look at this cable and make sure I have the right length so that the cable itself is not bound. You don't want to have a tight curve. You want to have a kind of a fat curve so the cable slides easily through its path. But as of the moment, yeah, that may be where it ends up. Okay, may even come back just a little. If I do that, I could skip this panel and just work right off of the forward section of this and make some little mounts right there. Okay, I think that's too far back. It puts it behind and makes it awkward. So I think somewhere in that area might be where it ends up. I'll have to pull the seat, hook the cable up, and see where it runs inside the tunnel. These cars sit so low that you struggle with getting the seats out sometimes. Took me a few tries to get the socket onto the nut. I only had one nut holding the seat in. Got that out of the way, and then I verified where I had started with the shifter. When I was sitting in the car, I kind of eyeballed where it was going to sit. I did feel like this cable was going to be too short, but there's really only one way to know, and that's to assemble everything and make sure. Now, this bracket is on the back of this shifter, this plate sticking out. It has a hole with a slot in it, and the cable actually has kind of a groove pressed into it. You can see I'm looking at that right there. When you put this on, the bolt slides into that groove, and then the bottom of that bracket goes into the slot, and that keeps it from rotating. It's a really nice design, pretty simple, but it works well. Also in the front here, there's an extra piece that goes on that connects to the shifter arm itself. So I'm stretching the cable around and I'm looking at it and trying to figure out where would it go if I had to go inside of those inner pieces. And I realized I need to get this up in the air so I can verify where the end of the transmission is. Obviously, it takes a few minutes to get the lift in place, and I decided to remove the fender so it was just out of the way. Get the car up in the air, and many times, every time I do this, I double check. I get the car in the air and I look and make sure the pads or in the exact location that I want them so that they won't slip and the car won't fall. Once I get it up to the height that I want, I also put in safety stands. And I've gotten grief before about putting in safety stands, like people saying, "Oh, are you worried about this or worried about that?" Yeah, I am. I really would not like to have this car fall or have a car land on me. So yeah, safety is a priority. I sure am glad that I have this lift so I can get a good look and work on the underside of these cars. So if you remember when I was doing the headers and trying to test fit those, they were being very difficult, especially with this shift arm. And this is part of the kit from Lokar. And that bracket that I showed you bolts up down here, and the cable comes through that and comes forward to this. And I'm realizing the cable is too short. I talked about having a big curve because you don't want to have a bind, but here's something that's going to define where this goes. So this is the bottom of the firewall. This is where the floor pan starts and the firewall joins it at that little corner. So if you notice, we're about 4.5, maybe 5 inches from this corner to this pivot point. And this operates this direction. So all the way forward is park. Okay, so keep that in mind. We got this corner as a reference. The shifter will be back here, and if you look at where the welds are for the tunnel, that was the front mount for the shifter roughly. Well, I started looking at it and I've come to the conclusion this cable is going to be too short. I bolted everything together, made this rigid, put all the bolts here to make it tight, and then I pivot this around, and it's hard to do without this moving, but this cable comes up way short. I mean, I say way short, and with this on a tight curve, the end of this cable right here ends up about there. And if you look, there's the corner. So 6 inches, roughly, just to get from here to that corner, and then another 5 inches to get to the mount point on the transmission. So I'm going to have to get another cable. And I was looking, there are part numbers on this, 68, 180, 2195W. And I've already looked, Speedway Motors has these. I don't know what the length is, I haven't measured this. We'll take it out of the car and get a measurement. Without knowing how they measure this, whether it's from the absolute end to the absolute end, I'm just going to have to guess. So this cable is about 49.25 overall, and then you add on the little end piece and you're probably about 50. So I don't know how they measure these, but when I come up here and I look, they show different lengths on these cables. This is 68-189. Let's see what this says. 9048, 48 inch. The 72 inch, that's a whole different number, and 96, a whole different. So 68189, universal 5 feet, and as I said earlier, this one 68180. So I'll have to do a little bit of research and see, because I typed that number in initially, and I don't know, maybe, see, that doesn't come up the same. So I'll do a little research, see what I come up with, but I probably at least need a 60-inch cable, hopefully not a 72-inch, but let me see what I can find. Okay, I found it. So Summit shows this Lokar floor shift replacement cable 68-180, but it says not available, and then it says same item, new number. So WCA 9048. I don't want this because there you see it says 48 inches. So I want at least 60 inches. So I'm going to click here on the Lokar page. And this one says 72 inches, so that's 6 feet. And there it is. Lokar floor shift replacement cables WCA 9060. And it is 60 inches. So I'm going to be making a trip to Summit to get one of these. Just need another excuse to go to Summit, I guess. There it is. And that cable's $113. But that's fine. I'll get it, and I think that's going to address the situation and be able to take care of that problem with the length issue. So I just got off of I-75, and here we have Summit Racing in McDonough, Georgia. Not far from where I live. It takes me about maybe 25 minutes to get here. And I really appreciate them being so close, because when I do need something, I can get it. So right up here, we're going to go take a right into their parking area. And this has always been a difficult area here in McDonough. There's a lot of trucking and traffic and just cars everywhere. And right now we're about, I don't know, close to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Cross over these railroad tracks, and then we'll pull in here. And this is the main entrance to the store. And this is where I've been for car shows and, you know, different events. So when you're leaving, you don't want to come out this entrance. You actually want to come this direction or go around the building and go out that way, because if you try to go out the way I came, it's going to force you to turn right. I love that they have this great big American flag waving in front of their businesses. I really do appreciate that. So we're going to go up here, we're going to go inside, take a quick look at what's on display, and then I'm going to order a new cable for the project. Looks like they have an AMC car sitting right in the front here. Yep, that's cool. Here we go. I probably have to have them look at this because I'm bringing it into the store versus walking out with it. I'm bringing this in with me. Do I need to mark it or anything?
Just in case I know here. There you go.
Thank you. Check that out. 69 AMC. One of 1,512 scramblers. That's pretty cool. Red, white, and blue. Looks a lot like a Nova. AMC 390, 4-speed. That's cool. Got that funky hood scoop up there. See what the other one is. The machine, it says on this one, on the back. It's a Rebel. Man, AMC did make some cool looking cars. Nice tight gaps. The Rebel machine. So, if you've not been to Summit, they have all kinds of stuff here. On that side over there is Scratch and Dent. You can zoom in. You'll see a sign up there that says Scratch and Dent. So there's several racks over there that have parts they're discounting. And then, of course, the rest of the store has everything else in it. I will be going to the check-in counter, sales and information, and making an order. But I'll do that in just a minute. So they always have this entrance right here, and they have a bunch of smalls, little stuff you might want to grab. just little odds and ends. Shifter balls, micrometers, little NASCAR model cars. But you come over here and there's a group of people that sit behind the counter, and you tell them what you need. They'll either look it up for you on the screen, or like I do, I usually bring in a picture with a part number and just tell them what I need and let them order it directly so they don't have to look anything up. Very helpful and very friendly. I do appreciate them when they do this stuff. So he ordered the part for me, or for me to look at. I haven't paid for it yet, so I thought I'd walk around just a little bit because it takes him a few minutes to get stuff from the back. So this is all the discount stuff, and you might find a whole set of wheels sometimes. Most of the time it seems like there's like just one-offs, like just display wheels, but you never know, you might find something that you need, like maybe you had one damaged and they just happen to have it on display. Flex plates, flywheels, all kinds of pieces and parts, and they put a little barcode on these. A lot of times it will say that it's from a Ford or GM or whatever, but they put a barcode on there, I'm sorry, a QR code, and you scan that, and that way you get the details on it. But there's all kinds of stuff. You know, here's oil pans. Over here's a intake, paint primer, springs, shocks, suspension pieces, steering box, spindles. There's a steering column. Retail $808, on sale for $320. Ooh, cool looking steering wheel. I might have to look at that. I don't know if that's a whole transmission or a housing. Interesting. Brake boosters, brake rotors, and headers. I may need to look at the headers. I'll have to look at those too while I'm here. Mufflers, all kinds of stuff. And of course everything else that's in this massive store. So after you place your order, and so normally if you place an order, you come over here to the cashier area, and again they have a bunch of small stuff there to get you to buy, but you pay the cashier, and then you go over there to order pickup, and you get your parts that you've ordered. There was a little confusion when I did this earlier because apparently somebody had added caliper paint to my order, and I paid for it not realizing that it was on the ticket. So got it cleared up, and I'm headed back out the door. There's all kinds of cool stuff in here. If you're ever bored, just go to Summit Racing and walk around and look at all the cool stuff. I'm sure I'll be back. Parts and parts and parts and parts and parts. So I have the first cable with a little piece of tape on it. They put that on at Summit just to know that I brought it in the store. And the new cable. And it is a foot longer. So that's going to help a ton. What I want to do now is do some verification. So we talked about this little shifter arm and this plate, which will end up underneath at this location right here. So I'm going to put this in place just to make sure everything works together. Now initially I thought about the conflict of this box coming through that box with the cable, but with this new length I've come to realize that I can actually bring the cable through, I know it's hard to see here, through about here. I can create a hole and loop it and bring it forward. And I'll show you that when I get it up in place. And that way I avoid this box completely, and I have something that I can attach the cable to. So I can put a little strap up here and hold it in place. So I'm going to get this stuff on, this bracket, and we'll take another look at it. So I've had this bracket on before, and I know these two bolts have to come out. Pretty easy to remove them. Obviously the pan bolts are not going to be very tight, and there's a lot of adjustment on this arm. There's little spacers, as I show there. They're probably a little bit taller than a 1/4 inch. They slide onto the bolt after the bolt goes through the bracket, and it acts as a spacer to keep it off of the flange of the oil pan. A lot of adjustment here. You can move that thing back and forth probably 2.5 inches, maybe 3 inches. And I start bolting it on. I realize it's a little snug. Let me loosen up the bolts. Then I work on getting the cable in place. Just it has these 2 jam nuts, one on either side, or they face each other, let's say. So remove one of those, slide it through the hole, and it's got those like star washers to help it bind onto that. So I just thread the nut back on and just finger tight. I'm not trying to make everything super tight right now. On the end of this cable is a threaded connection. So there's a rubber boot on there. I take the rubber boot off and I slip on the heim joint that they provide, and I adjust it to where I can put the bolt through. And this I just kind of played with a little bit. Like the bolt could probably go either way, or you could go on either side of the bracket. But for now, I just lined everything up and got it in place. And then I feed the cable. You can see it coming through the tunnel. I feed it to get an idea of where it may end up. So the cable is mounted, and as I pointed out, the bracket will slide back and forth. I showed you that. There's an adjustment here. You can move it back and forth. And also on this end joint, you can adjust this based on the threads. This is not tight. The bolt is snugged into the nut, but that's like the lock nut, so I'm not going to run that down. And this is all able to be moved. Currently, I have the cable running inside of this leg of what I call a spider. You could go on the outside here. So I haven't committed to that just yet. You can just see a little bit of deflection going from side to side, but it is a cable in a very hard sheath. I don't think that's a concern, but you can see where it would line up pretty easily close to those. With that in place, it's riding on the inside of this piece of pipe, and then it loops back just in front of the hole that is for the brake line mount. So this sort of had that clip there and held the brake line. There's one here and one here as well. So I want to show you this because this is not where I want it. It's currently inside the tunnel, but it needs to come out somewhere in that area right there and come forward. But I want to show you that the end, if you look, you can see that's where the connection is for the shifter. Basically, that's on line with these spot welds right here that's holding that upper piece on. So we're going to go inside and look and see where that comes out. And at the moment, it's actually a little farther forward. So here's the connection point, and that's where the spot welds are. So you can see this is about where I want the shifter, as I mentioned earlier. Kind of want it sitting close to that center of that hump maybe. I mean, it could go right there, it's fine. And I'll build a little bridge up in the front. But the cable will come through the floor and come forward and connect there. So I think that's going to work out really good. I just need to get an opening here somewhere and be comfortable with creating that opening so there's no sharp edges or anything like that. But I don't want to deal with this inner structure that would be on like the convertible, you know, the convertible cars. So coming in from back here, I think that's the answer. Well, I have the cable attached with the end on it, bolted to the bracket. And as I said, it's going through this opening right now, and I'm still debating on that because it could come back here, but I made the hole there and I need to massage it just a little. Like I want to make it hump up a little more on this backside, like hump out, and bring this maybe down just a little, just to help it have a little more space. And currently it needs to go like over this to this side a little bit, and it'll move. Like I can push it over, you know, give it a little more clearance where the drive shaft will be. But if I come up through this back section here, as I talked about, if I can come up this way, it may even make it a cleaner look and feel. So right now that's all good. I'm going to show you from the inside. So I have the shifter sitting roughly where I want it. Cable all connected, and here is the cable coming through the floor. So like I was saying, this area right here, I want to raise it up a little more to give it just some clearance. It's not binding, it's not like cutting on it or anything. It moves pretty easily. There's not much there, but you know, you just want to be cautious with that stuff. Even though it's a hard cased housing with this rubber coating on it, you still want to be protective of it. All I did, I wanted to avoid this structure, so I got as close to it as I could, drilled a hole, and then opened it up as necessary. I've already cycled this by hand, and it does function. The one thing I'm looking at is the way this interacts. So currently, this is clamped in nice and tight, and if you'll see, that appears to be, I'll have to look at the instructions a little more. It almost feels like this needs to be coming through from the inside, like that. And the problem is you can't get it in there unless you pivot this down to make room. So I just have it right there for now, and I think it'll probably end up being turned over, but it's fine at the moment. So what I want to do is get some nutserts into these locations and then come up with some sort of a perch or standoff that will allow me to do the same thing up here. So that'll be the next step. As I usually do, I take measurements, and I wanted to try to verify that the shifter itself would be in the center of the tunnel. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized it may not even be centered. Like the tunnel itself could be offset slightly. So I mark a center line of where I want the bolt holes as you look at it from side to side here, and then I move the shifter out of the way, and I had also marked the lines at the front and back of the holes. So then I get those lines to intersect, and that gives me the drill location that I'm looking for. Now this nutsert kit that I use, it comes with a step drill, and I've used it in the past, and that step drill works fine, but I knew I was going to have a problem here because you have this extra convertible stiffener piece on top of the original tunnel and floor pan. So in drilling that, I did not want to have to drill through both pieces. I just wanted to go through this upper portion. So I start with like an 1/8 inch bit, like a number 30, and I drill a pilot hole, and then I use a larger drill bit, and I did a comparison of that drill bit to the nutserts. Normally I would use the step drill to get the size right, but as you'll see here, I can't get the nutsert in. I use my step drill as a guide, and I realize I can't drill it because the floor pan is under it. So I just wobble out the holes a little bit. Didn't take much. It's like a 351 or something along those lines. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I stepped the hole to what I needed, and then I started using this tool that I've used many times. I will say this, I was using it incorrectly here. A lot of times I get in a hurry when I have a tool that I feel like I've used and I feel like I know what I'm doing. Even though I was using it incorrectly, it was still making it work. There is a collar on the inside of the front section that you're supposed to slide back, and when you thread in the pulling part, you're supposed to square that up within that collar, and I didn't do that, but it still worked. I still got the nutserts to compress like I wanted. So once I did that, I tightened up the bolts, and these are 1/4-20s, so it's a 7/16 head. Got it solid, at least in the back, and then I started looking at what I wanted to do up front. I think I mentioned that you can adjust the ears that are sticking off of the shifter, and you can pivot them slightly as needed. And I was thinking, well, what can I put in here? So I found a piece of basically 1 inch by 1 inch angle iron that I had out in my scrap pile, and I didn't have to cut it. It was the right length. It was perfect. The only thing I had to do was cut one of the legs shorter because it was too tall. So the width measurement was fine, but the height was off. And I just wanted to make sure that I could make some adjustments here. So I loosened up these bolts, as I mentioned, to pivot the bracket slightly, just give a little more play in it. And that it gave me a little more room, but I still ended up needing to cut off probably a little over 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3/16. And then to do that, I put it up here in my bench vise, clamp it in place, put on all my protective stuff, that I always do, get out my Bauer grinder that I use all the time, say my reader glasses, really, earmuffs, gloves, and then the face shield that I always use. And I never really measure this stuff. I just kind of have a feel for it. So I start cutting and remove maybe 1/8 inch. And I will say, even though I cut this off, and you'll see me, I'll use the sander here in a second, I did a lot of prep work to make sure that it was, no burrs on it, no sharp edges, knock off any paint. But I ended up having to cut it a second time. It was still a little bit too tall, and just repeated the process. So smooth off all the edges, break, when you're working on airplanes, they tell you to break all the edges so you don't have a sharp edge. So if somebody's reaching into a hole or something, they don't get their hand cut on a corner. So I always try to do that even when I'm doing stuff inside of a car like this. So get it all ready to go, and then I'm going to weld it into the car. I really like the controls on this welder. When it lights up here, you'll see a bunch of settings up on the top, and I'm going to turn this dial and go to the thickness of the metal, and then you can preset that thickness and it'll set the heat, basically the amperage, and then I fine tune it down as I feel I need it to be, and then go from there. Now I'm just going to place this under the front edge of the shifter, get it located to where I like it, and you'll see I have the leg of the angle iron to the back, and that's just no real rhyme or reason other than it puts that weld back onto that cross piece or that cross panel. So get it where I want it, and then set the ground, and of course the wire feed on the welder as I had shown you, and just weld the ends. I just wanted to have it basically welded on each end so it couldn't move. So I do it on the driver's side, and then I move around to the passenger side basically, and put another heavy tack on that corner. I'm not too worried about too much heat or anything right there, because the heat in that little piece of angle iron is going to mostly stay in it, and if it goes to those brackets, it won't really do much. So mark where I want the holes to be, and then I end up taking the shifter loose once again and getting it out of the way. Once I remove the shifter, then I have access to adding some more welds. And what I end up doing is putting a heavier weld on the backside, pretty heavy weld. Want to make sure it's going to stay solid. I don't expect it to really go anywhere, but it doesn't hurt to have some good solid welds. I weld that, and then I come to the front edge of where I had tacked it on each side. So again, just trying to make sure it is good and solid. It's unlikely anything's going to hit this or, cause it to ever move, but you know how it is. You want things to stay where you intend them to be. Now, once I have that in place and I have it cooled down, I let it sit for a little bit. I verify that the holes are where I want them, and now I'm going to drill the pilot holes for the forward nutsert locations. So I repeat the process. I still can't use that step drill because it is too long and it won't make it. It'll end up hitting the panel. So I just repeat the same thing. Use the bigger drill, and I do a couple of test fits, wobble the drill bit around a little bit, check the nutsert to see if it's going to clear, and it's still a little bit tight. So wobble the drill just a tiny bit more, and that's all it took. and that nutsert fits right in nicely. So I reset the tool here. I didn't go through all the process. I realized I didn't have it set right, and once I aligned that inner pulling part, it went much smoother. I didn't have to fight with it like I was with one of the other ones. So get both of those in place, lock them down. And as I probably already mentioned, I do have this listed on Amazon, so there will be a link to this tool as well if you're interested in it. Make sure the thing is not too hot, and it's not. So I run the bolts in, again, 1/4-20s, and I just have flat washers on there for now, holding it in place. Not too concerned with it moving around very much. This thing is very solid feeling, and even these little bolts are going to hold it down just fine. It's not like you're going to be trying to rip this thing out of the floor whenever you're making shifts. So verify that it functions the way that it should. And I'll do some adjustments on the cable itself underneath the car and make sure that it's in the right pattern for function. And then I'm going to show you that in the next segment so you can see how it works. So the shifter is now rigidly mounted to the floor pan. I have bolts going into the nutserts through this cross piece for the convertible floor pan, and then as you saw, I welded this piece of angle iron up front, and I put the inserts or nutserts in those as well. So very rigid. Cable is mounted, comes back to the mount point here on this extension and goes through the hole in the floor. I do not have the clip on this shaft just yet. I didn't want to put it on and be fighting with it, taking it on and off. But I want to show you, this shifter has electronics built in. So there's a series of wires here that will have to be connected later. And it has a stock style detent, like a regular shifter you'd have a button or something. This has a detent button. So when you do this, from park, come back to reverse, come back to neutral, come back to drive, and it'll act like a regular shifter. But if you come back one more, you can slide the shifter to the side, and now you have control of the shifting. I think it's pretty cool. Now this is a 4-inch length here on this shift arm. It looks like you can actually take this off and probably change this if you wanted to, but I think it's going to be just fine. So slide it back over and it's back into regular mode, and you can then cycle it to the front again, park. As I said, you get the idea. It's hard to do this reaching across whenever you're normally sitting in the driver's seat. So there we go. I like it. So I showed you what it looks like from the top, and what I decided to do here was keep the cable a little straighter, and rather than try to go like inside here, and put a bind on it, I'm just going to follow the outside of this bar structure on the spider. So this is simple enough. I can just push this up and install those little binder clamps. They got a round with a leg on them. I can just put them right there. Put one there, and if I need to, put one there, and it'll be fine. And then here, I can also just push that over and do the same thing if I wanted to. Put another one up there. So I don't see it being a conflict with the drive shaft or anything. And as I have already pointed out, we're waiting on the headers to show up. And I feel like, with the effort that TCI has put in and Sal with making these new headers, that it should not have any conflict here at this point. This is nice and tight, as it should be up against the transmission. And as you already know, you saw I built this tranny mount and showed you videos on that. And if I need to, I don't think I will, but if I need to, I can raise the tranny up just a little tiny bit to help with the angle if necessary. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with how this is all looking. And like I said, I'm waiting for those headers to show up so that I can do another test fit of that as well. Also, I should point out, when I was shifting this, you saw some play here. This is not, I did not tighten all this up. This is just finger tight, and this isn't tight, you know, so there's still adjustments to be made and fine tuning, but for now I have it close enough to I could show, so I could show how it worked. So I'm looking forward to getting more done on this soon. I know you are too. More to come. Well, I feel like I'm making some pretty good progress on this project. I've had conflicts with the headers before and the shifter and all of that sort of thing, and hopefully that is all behind me. I am waiting on the headers to show up, and I had a text message from Sal asking for some information from me. I've given him that, and he has implied that those headers will be showing up very soon. And when they do, I will do a video showing you how well they fit. I'm expecting that they're going to fit great, and I really do hope that is how it plays out. But I will show you the end result. Now, when I make these videos, I suggest that people join Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a patron, there are links in the description box down below, and I want to thank my patrons for being here and helping me to continue to make these videos. Every little bit helps these days, and I appreciate every one of them for being here. But if you're interested, follow the links. There will also be links for any tools or equipment or stuff that I endorse in that box. So like the Yes Welder or maybe some other tools that I've demonstrated in the past, there will be links down below. And if you buy something from those links, I get a little tiny percentage out of that. Again, every little bit helps. But as it is, that'll be the end of this video. So hopefully next week, I have a video to talk about the headers. If not, I'll find something else to do. Stay busy. That'll be it for now. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.
So you have an old car and you want it right, but every boat you turn wants to put up a fight. There's one place to go, and it's not a mirage.